afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to another HRO Today educational podcast. I'm Elliot Clark, the CEO of HRO Today magazine. We publish HRO Today, HRO Today EMEA, and HRO Today APAC. We're the producers of the HRO Today forums held around the world and the managers of the HRO Today Association. We're going to talk today about talent acquisition, and I want to focus once again on the middle market. These are companies that may have 1,000 to 5,000 employees. They may need to hire anywhere from a few hundred to maybe 1,000 people a year. And typically, while many of them are looking for talent acquisition partners in this very difficult to project environment, there's been a trend toward, well, we have to build it internally. There's no one to go to. So the enterprise market, they're always making this buy or build decision. In the middle market, they don't even know all the time who to go to. It's an underserved market. Many of the RPO players, particularly amongst the larger enterprise players, have tried to enter that space, some with more limited success. And the reason is what we're going to talk about. My guest today is Felix Mitchell. Felix is the co-CEO of a company named Instant Impact. You got to love that name. Instant Impact is an RPO firm. It was founded in 2010. They've made quite a splash in EMEA, growing very, very rapidly, and they're now coming, or have arrived rather, in the United States. And Instant Impact, essentially postures that they're reinventing the RPO industry. Their concept's relatively simple for all of you out there in HRO Dayland listening. It's do really high quality work at entrepreneurial speed. Remember, a lot of these large market enterprise RPO firms, and this is Instant Impact's point, are multi-billion-dollar global staffing or workforce service companies that their entrepreneurial era is so far in the rearview mirror, they're not always able to match the way their clients work for either speed of engagement in the contracting process or speed of implementation. So we're going to ask how they do it. Felix Mitchell, co-CEO of Instant Impact, welcome to the podcast.
It's such a pleasure to be on, Elliot. Thank you so much for having me.
So give me a 30, 60-second overview of Instant Impact and, sort of from your perspective, if you will.
Well, how do I beat what you've already said, Elliot? I love that. It's a high-quality recruitment at entrepreneurial speed. I think, broadly speaking, what we're focusing on is the RPO business of choice or talent solutions business of choice for small and mid-sized businesses. And we have approached the market from first principles and built a set of solutions to solve the really quite diverse challenges that we experience when we come into a new client. It's quite a broad church of businesses we were speaking about there. So we work with our clients on anything from full talent outsourcing all the way through to working on specialist talent campaigns, or even really providing recruiter on demand, sourcing specialists on demand, or specific advisory work around challenges that mid-market companies that we work with face. As you said before, we've done a lot of work in EMEA, and the United States is a big focus for us in 2023 and beyond.
So you guys have a radical concept here. You want to run a service business that is quick, effective, and flexible. I mean, that's outrageous. Who would think someone would buy that? Let me move on. A little sarcasm is always good.
Well, we love it. We love it over here, Elliot.
All right. So we've been talking about the middle market companies for the past few years, right? So HRO Today has. And as I said in the opening, they may hire anywhere from a few hundred to a few thousand. It's underserved, okay? As you look at the difference, we've talked about in our conversations leading up to the podcast, and I really appreciate you taking part. We've talked about how these 1,000-person company that might be, venture funded, growing very rapidly, may have very rapidly changing needs. Okay, and I've been a critic of fixed infrastructure in the volatile economic environments we have around the globe. So we've talked about how, they'll go to one of these large firms and then, they've got to go through communications, compliance, legal, and it takes them 90 days to do a contract and then another 90 days to implement, and that just doesn't work. So how does your firm Instant Impact manage the engagement and implementation of RPO solutions? And it sounds like you're very flexible in how you set them up, but how do you manage the engagement and implementation of RPO solutions to ensure you can provide both the speed and flexibility that these clients require?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So let's start with engagement. And what we've really focused on doing is to build the sort of engagement process that we'd like to go through ourselves. We're a small business ourselves. We have very fast changing needs, as do our clients, and we like companies that respond to those as quickly as we do. So when it comes to working with us, we work incredibly collaboratively with our new potential clients to really understand the challenge that they're facing and to build a solution that solves that problem, but we don't want to overcomplicate it. So for example, when it comes to contracting with a new client, we make sure that we strip out anything that we really don't need and keep it to the minimum viable contract length. So ours is 10 pages, sort of somewhere in the region of 10% of what many of our competitors, those sort of multi-billion dollar staffing firms that you were mentioning before, would require. We do the same when it comes to the solution that we start with, the technology that we start with. We want to make sure that we are able to get on the treadmill whilst it's still running and then slowly turn up the speed. So that's the kind of responsiveness that our clients really require. And what it results in is depending on the geography. So in the US, we're ramping in about 4 weeks from initial engagement, sort of getting the go ahead, and in EMEA, slightly longer, more like 8 weeks.
Well, for some of the large players, it takes them 4 weeks to complete a full capabilities presentation, and there's 7,000 slides. Let me ask you this. You mentioned it's a 10-page contract, but you still have SOWs and service level agreements, and those kinds of things are attached. So is it 10 pages plus the SOW and the SLAs,
No,
I would
Elliot,
assume?
it's really 10 pages total. Of course, there are clients that want a more detailed piece of work, but we don't want to drown our clients in legalese. We're big believers in building trusting relationships, and there are some areas that we probably rely on the strength of our relationships. Probably lawyers would say too much, but we think that it builds the foundation of a really strong relationship. So, who knows, maybe that gets a little longer in the future, but we like that it's lean at the moment. It works well for our way of working for our clients as well.
So unlike some of the other companies as well, and there's arguments why in very large scale RPO it doesn't work to sort of ease in, but you guys are willing to be flexible and sort of start and grow with the customer. Is that a good way to describe it?
Absolutely. And I think a point you made earlier that fixed infrastructure is sort of enemy to good business practice at the moment is absolutely bang on the way that we see it. We're operating in a business environment at the moment where companies have had to navigate 4 years of business interruption and change, the likes of which many of us haven't seen in our professional life. And what we're expecting to see at Instant Impact is that level of business interruption and suppose global shifts to the economy and to markets is going to become the norm. So why would companies want to partner with a business that lumbers them with a multi-year huge fixed investment for a massive RPO piece? I mean, what we'd rather do with our clients and the way that we've developed our solution is, yes, we work with our clients for the long term, but they have essentially the hub of the solution, which is their on-site and embedded team that works with them, and then an immensely flexible infrastructure that we've created to service across our different clients. And that's something that they can tap into almost on demand. So that covers everything from additional recruitment support, sourcing specialists, it's the reporting, the management information, but then also some of those key areas like talent marketing and employer brand as well that might just be a fixed project. So our medium-sized companies, they're able to tap into the kind of infrastructure that they'd expect if they were to work at a much, much larger organization.
Well, and I think that's a great point that, when I talk about that fixed infrastructure, yeah, I think everyone should have a part of their infrastructure that acts as, for lack of a better term, the shock absorber. I look across, I'm a bit older than you are. You started Instant Impact right out of university when you graduated from University of Cambridge about, 13, 14 years ago. But during my life, I've been in the recruiting industry for about 35 years, right? So a long time. I've seen 5 or 6 major recessions or disruptions, including the pandemic, et cetera. So that means it's averaging once every 5 years. Okay? So if you're not built for that kind of volatility, it's not like we're having a recession every 10 years and whatever, and you've got a long-term planning process. Sometimes they're 2 or 3 years apart. And we've just seen that with not even an economic turndown. It was literally a health crisis. So let me just ask this. So you've designed the services to make the contracting, the planning, the implementation phase easy. And you can quickly be into that recruiting mode. Let's talk about the fact that many of the organizations, that may be listening that are particularly in the mid-market, they're saying, yeah, that's great, but doing that kind of thing is very expensive, right? These organizations operate on a limited budget compared to much larger companies. I used to joke when I was in the RPO industry that our client, we had very large clients, they would sweat more money in a year than we would earn, okay, just wasting it. But these smaller companies have to operate on very, very limited budgets by comparison. So from a flexibility perspective, how do you offer them that variable infrastructure and tech stack that you've got from, both the team and technology perspective to help them quickly increase and decrease volume as it's needed? And then further to that, you and your partner Rob claim you do it better. Why are you better than your competitors? So answer those questions for me.
Absolutely. So I'll answer them in order. So I think the key to providing an RPO solution in a cost-effective manner, I think there are a couple. I think the model that we've built where our clients are really only paying for resources that they're using and that they need is a really key element to it. So we usually build our on-site teams or our dedicated teams around the minimum level of recruitment that we're expecting to see from that client at any given time. So we know that those team members, those resources, they're going to be at full capacity regardless of what's going to happen in the economy. So we've all sort of seen what the base case level is during recession, sort of build it around what we're expecting to see there. And every company has their own variables around that. Having an element of dedicated is really important, Elliot, because it allows for our team to grow a really deep understanding of the nuances of the different organizations that we work with, to understand what makes a fantastic hire at company A where it wouldn't be for company B, albeit that the job titles are exactly the same. So there's that level of touch and feel and sort of understanding that dedicated element of our service provides. Then everything else is built around flexibility and really around providing our clients with what they need when they need it. So I mentioned a few of the different columns that we've built our solution around before, but to go into them, so we've got our talent acquisition professionals, and we've got a team of flexible but incredibly high quality, we call them talent partners, but essentially talent acquisition professionals who can go in and add recruitment capacity to our different clients as needed. And we do that on an on-demand basis. We've got a team of sourcing specialists. And I think I always say you can talk about what makes a company successful at talent acquisition until you're blue in the face, but the core of success to any of them, the table stakes, if you will, are the ability to source quality talent. And the markets that we operate in are incredibly competitive. So we've also got a team of highly capable and expert sourcing specialists, and really comes from a recognition that sourcing and headhunting talent is a skill and an art in itself. So those guys and girls, people are able to tap into that pool and bring on those professionals on an on-demand basis. Then we've also got centers of excellence in data, and that includes our talent insights, it includes our management information, and includes our reporting teams as well. Really important to a lot of our clients who often haven't really had a particularly high level of information or data informing their talent strategy or their sort of different tactics they're using at any given time. We've then also got a great capability internally to help our clients with their employer brand. So we've got talent marketing in-house. We use those talent insights to better understand the EVP that we need to build around the different jobs, around the different clients and the different markets and different geographies that they operate in. And of course, we've got a broader suite of improvement programs that we can run for our clients. So I'll give you an example. For a lot of our clients, we're helping them to build programs to bring in talent into their industry. So we look at college leavers, and then also in the US, as you know, a lot of the larger organizations do veterans programs. And without a sort of broader level of expertise, the companies that we work with, their HR teams, they're too lean to really be able to understand, what the funding requirements are, have enough capability to build out the right structure, and then finally go out and get the right sort of talent for those sorts of programs. And that's where something like our sort of RPO solutions can really, really help. They get a level of expertise, a level of infrastructure that would just be, near impossible for them to build themselves broadly on a completely on-demand basis.
So in truth, a lot of your competitors, as I listen to you, Felix, they'll lay claim to being able to do many of those things, but most of those are large firms. So it sounds like you've built out your internal capability to sort of mirror what many of the very, very large RPO firms have. But this focus on we're going to have a tight relationship with the client, we're going to trust each other, and we're going to allow them to expand and contract as needed, that is a differentiator in the middle market where, there's a limit to how small some of these larger organizations really can be effective both on a cost basis and in terms of an agility and flexibility perspective.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we haven't found, unfortunately, I'll let you know when we do, but we haven't found the silver bullet to talent acquisition. It's about, we do a lot of what we do very, very well, but you're absolutely right. We're mirroring some of the deliverables that you'd expect some of the larger players in our space, and some of them do some absolutely excellent work in the spaces that they work in. But what happens when they try and step down to the middle market is that the frame of references that they have just don't measure up, and some of those deliverables they have start to creak. If you're an organization that's used to delivering a campus recruitment program for a large bank, for example, that can run into the tens of millions of dollars in budget, how are you then going to provide that same level of quality, that same level of quality hire to an organization that's hiring 20 people in their same program? It's a different scale, it's a different way of thinking. And I think that's why some of the flexibility that we show, it would be sort of anathema to some of those companies that do those much, much larger scale deliverables.
And I think one of the other differentiators is your brand, right? There's a brand promise associated with naming the company Instant Impact, right? So that there is an aspect the middle market firm should not overlook of the brand promise of even the name of the firm. Many of those much larger companies have eventual or will get to it impact. Maybe in a few months we'll have impact. At least a quarter from now, there will be impact. That's what they should be named, okay? Given how they function in a much more larger bureaucratic way. But Instant Impact clearly, has been designed for speed. So this has been fascinating, Felix. We're going to have you come back and talk a little bit more about how you're sort of wrapping around the needs of the middle market, because this variable infrastructure issue is a big topic now, and it's affecting, small companies that need to contract or grow tend to need to do it much, much faster. There has to be service offerings out there that actually can match that entrepreneurial speed, to use that phrase again. I want to thank Felix Mitchell, co-CEO of Instant Impact, and you heard him promise the instant and the impact all at once during today's podcast. Felix, thanks for taking part in the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Elliot.
All right, and we will look forward to having you again. This is Elliot Clark. I'm the CEO of HRO Today. Thank you for your time and attention, and we will look forward to you joining us for our next HRO Today educational podcast.